the following to you, that you have been invited to appear before this ad hoc committee which investigate allegations made by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, the Provincial Police Commissioner in KwaZulu-Natal province, the province where you are based. You have been invited here to provide information which will help the ad hoc committee in its oversight work. The ad hoc committee is investigating allegations which include, amongst others, the alleged unlawful disbandment of the Political Killings Task Team, otherwise known as the PKTT or the NPKTT. Number 2, alleged moratorium on the filling of vacancies within the SAPS, the South African Police Services in full. And number 3, alleged corrupt relationship between senior leadership within SAPS and members of the public. And lastly, political interference in the work of the SAPS. In extending this invitation to you, the chairperson of the ad hoc committee has indicated that you may provide such information if you so wish under oath in terms of the powers, privileges and immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act 2004. Please be informed that by law you are required to answer fully and satisfactorily all the questions lawfully put to you, or to produce any document that you are required to produce in connection with the subject matter of the inquiry, notwithstanding the fact that the answer or the document could incriminate you or expose you to criminal or civil proceedings or damages. Dr. De Haas, you are, however, protected in that evidence given under oath or affirmation before a House or committee of Parliament may not be used against you in any court or place outside Parliament except in criminal proceedings concerning a charge of perjury or a charge relating to the evidence or documents required in these proceedings. Please be aware that in terms of Section 17(2) of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act 2004, a person who willfully furnishes a House or a Committee of Parliament with information or makes a statement before it which is false or misleading commits an offence and is liable to a fine or in an imprisonment not exceeding a term of 2 years. You are required to take an oath or affirm that the evidence you are about to give is truthful. And I will want to check with you, what do you elect? Do you elect oath or affirmation?
An oath is fine, thank you. I'm quite happy with that. It's a kind of old-fashioned way of doing things, I suppose.
You take oath?
Yes, I'll take them.
Okay, if you elect to take oath, you will follow me. You will say I and state your names in full.
I, sorry?
And then state your names in full.
Okay. Oh, yes, my full name. Sure, of course. Yeah. Yeah. I'm married. Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay.
Can you say I?
Yeah. And the rest?
You say I?
Yes.
And then state your names in full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you do that?
Do you want to? Do I need to raise my hand?
No. You will raise your hand later.
Okay. I, Mary Elizabeth Ann Travell de Haas,
swear that the evidence I shall give.
Swear that the evidence I shall give.
Shall be the truth.
Shall be the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
You can then raise your hand and say, so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you so much. SC, I'm handing over to you. Prof. De Haas, the SC is going to lead evidence with you. I'm allocating you the 2 hours between now and 13 hours, and then we will take a break at that time. Thank you so much. And good luck.
Did you prepare a tricky wicket? Like Sunday. Good morning, Chair, honourable members, colleagues, media, all present. Good morning, Dr. Dahas. Pleased to meet you, and thank you for your cooperation. Dr. Das, you have a Doctor of Laws in Human Rights, which you achieved at Rhodes University a long time ago. You're a social anthropologist, now retired from the University of KZN. You have, over the years, written extensively about what is called the killing fields of KZN. You've had a distinguished record since the late 70s and the 80s, also exposing apartheid police, security police abuses, and you've carried on that work. You're here because the committee, honourable committees, invited you to be here because your name has been mentioned, maybe not as much as, but you're running Katmatlala and Brown Mkhwanazi close, so your name's been mentioned. Also because we've heard the evidence of suspended Minister Senzo Mkhunu, that he referred to a letter that you wrote to him on the 24th of October 2024, which he says is one of the reasons that informed his decision to issue the directive on the 31st of December 2024. Now, you've written also extensively about the political killings task team, both in its current form and previously, and you testified before the Morani Commission in relation to this. So much for me speaking. Can I refer you to Annexure MDH1, which is in essence a CV of the work that you've done, and I'm going to invite you not to read the entire annexure. Sorry. Sorry, I should have checked.
Is this Annexure B? Or Annexure B? Yeah.
Annexure B, yeah, it's called Annexure B, but it's marked.
Annexure A was the C.
Yeah, it's the first annexure in Volume 1. Honourable Chair, honourable members, are we all there? Volume 1 of the annexures, the first annexure. I am inviting you just perhaps to highlight one or two aspects, and not obviously to read the whole annexure.
I think, my argument is that what I'm doing now is just a continuation of what I started doing, especially in the 1980s when the violence was starting in what is now KwaZulu-Natal. Right. I am, as I said, I was working as a social anthropologist, which is participant. My desktop research was kind of going to weddings at weekends and getting a permit to go into townships and sitting in shebeens. That was very fun. That was great fun in townships and rural areas because I was doing research on drinking patterns and beer and the cultural meaning of beer as well. So, and these people that I had an ever-growing extensive network, and I must mention too that together with this, I was for a few years a member of the Progressive Federal Party at the time because we could then, and I was in the I was helping to take affidavits about police brutality, for example, because Roy Ainsley, who was then the regional director and who joined the ANC just before the elections in 93, was the regional director. He'd established an outreach network called Unrest Monitoring Group that people could phone in and on behalf of the party. And he was in the townships all the time taking affidavit statements. We combined our material, and I was working with Professor Paulus Zulu, who's a very old friend of mine, who was also monitoring the violence for some political stuff he was doing. So that's how it all came about that I got involved in this. And then this just carried on. After 1990, and we were interacting a lot with people from exile, including the people who became President Mbeki, President Zuma, and the local people, and their head of security at the time, Vusi Mazambela, was also very much involved with the work we were doing. And we got with the Goldstone Commission investigated. I worked with them. I worked with the investigative task unit, which was a bit of a disaster with the Magnus Milan case. But I was at this stage building up a big network of policemen, because since before Trust Feed, I'd worked very closely with Frank Dutton, who was to go on to become the chief investigator for the Zondo Commission. And he had a partnership with an extraordinary detective, a black-white detective.
Zondo or Goldstone?
No, this was Dutton, called Wilson Magadla. And Wilson and I were doing things together from then on, and he was introducing me to an ever-extensive network of black policemen who were coming and complaining they weren't getting their due record because the people who got promoted were the former KwaZulu police or the security police. So that's how I got into this, and this working relationship continued because I was also working in communities down the south coast when Shoba Shabana happened, especially up the north coast, because the violence continued after 94. So to fast forward, I've just carried on doing that because people I don't even know phone me and say we need a patrol in the area, the police aren't following up this case, and I've just been doing that since whenever, 1980s.
So
yeah.
Dr. Das, we can, it's catalogued in MDH2, MDH3, and I just want us to pause at MDH4, which is on page 17.
Oh dear.
And that again is a summary of the work. Have you got MDH4?
Sorry, mine seem a bit muddled here. I've got a page 10, 12, 14, then I've got 13. Oh, maybe it's, hang on, here we are. You said it's 17.
17 MDH4, yes.
Sorry, MDH4 is it? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Let me stick with the MDHs because the pages.
Are you double-sided?
Yeah, it's double-sided. Sorry, let me just go to MDH. 4. This is MDH.
On page 7.
Oh, I'm ahead of the time, I think. Hang on. No, sorry, I'm really getting muddled here. MDH4. What's the title of it? The page, sorry, if you don't, I'm sorry about this, I'm just kind of, is this the one with the article and the conversation? Sure, okay.
And at page 18, where you summarize the research you've done.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to ask you about paragraph 3, where you say, I've conducted anthropological research on political violence in the province since 1983. My work has been of a qualitative nature, using information obtained from my own research networks. Interventionist work with the police and media reports. We know that you also testified before the Morani Commission as an expert there. can you perhaps just explain a bit further what are your sources of information before we deal with your allegations around the political killings task team and some of the personalities involved, like General Mkhwanazi, General Khumalo, General Masemola. What do you mean by qualitative nature? What are your sources of information?
Well, qualitative research is ongoing. It's very, very interaction over time with people that the networks build up. I had this interactions with the police since, as I said, the beginning of the 90s, which just extended. Some of them still contact me, in fact, and they've retired. And so the information comes from police themselves. A number of police have come to me to ask for help because, for example, some of the task team people were investigating. This was in the 90s. Sorry, I'll go back. In the latter 90s, the provincial commissioner, with the approval of the national commissioner, set up very specific limited time task teams to look at what was the killings down the south coast, the killings up the north coast, and Richmond afterwards. These were of limited duration. Now, I work quite closely with those police, for example, who were doing the investigations. Some of them were persecuted when they were making breakthroughs leading to the politicians who were involved, both in Richmond and up the north coast. And we worked with them. I mean, we had some funding in those days from overseas, and we actually made sure they had good legal work, because some of the charges proved to be completely trumped up, especially in Richmond. Okay, so I've had that relationship with police over the years when they were working, including when they were working in teams. Some of them came to me and said, well, I'm leaving, I can't take it anymore, because they weren't getting recognition, their atmosphere was toxic. I also, through the media reports, integrated media reports. My research methodology is very varied. It's kind of academic, media, and personal. And also to phone people and get very specific information. Okay, and that's just carried on, basically. So at the moment, if we say, what I'm using in this is that the first-hand reports I get from people in communities who've had experience of political threat, political killings, not just political, widespread. I'm dealing with quite a few people whose land is at risk, even restitution land, because the mining want to take it over. And one very prominent member, for example, Mama Nchangasse at Somkele, was killed, just like the guy, not the same. So I deal with people at community level who don't get any help from the police. They say the police are corrupt. I follow up cases. I put whatever I can on record so that I have a check. And that's how I get to know if phone numbers don't work, if emails bounce back, etc. So my sources are varied. But in terms of this, I've spoken to police members who've been in the task team, especially at the beginning, and normally they were booted out if they started to make breakthroughs, they told me. I mean, a couple of them arrested people. I mean, and I want to say this right now because he hasn't had the recognition. You know that the people who are boosting the task team are saying, oh, we've got all these successes, and they keep coming back to the conviction of Ntuli, the accused number 5 in the Miwa case. Okay. That conviction was 6 life sentences, and it was obtained by Warrant Officer Makubu, who was in the Hawks. He was briefly a very experienced man with a stack of convictions. He was briefly sent to the task team, who moved him out. They wanted to move him out, he said, before he finished, but he did. He had a good prosecutor working with him. He got those 6 life sentences and a whole string of other dozens. So it's basically, he has never been given that. And I want to say it publicly. He is the one, not the task team per se, that got those 6 life sentences they keep boasting about. He's also the one who opened the second docket in the Miwa case, by the way, because he can see who the real killers are, and his life is at threat at the moment. I'm saying this publicly. There's been attempts on his life. That's what happens to good police. And these are the people I work with and help if I can. as well as what I get from all sorts of policing sources that I cannot verify.
So it's a network
Networks.
of various sources.
Yep.
And also, it sounds to me, some whistleblowers,
Yep.
people who've been dismissed, they claim unfairly or unjustly, and they come and complain to you, and of course you also follow the media reports and speak to some people directly.
Yes.
Have you actually appeared in court as an expert witness other than in commissions of inquiry? I think you assisted in Goldstone and...
I did give evidence to the Goldstone Commission, I'm pretty sure. Yes, I did. I remember going to the North Coast.
I want to request you that you speak through the microphone.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Sorry, yes. Sorry, of course I must. It's just the inbred sort of social interaction, but it's different in a formal situation. Okay. Yes, I gave evidence to the Goldstone Commission. And I've given evidence in court. I was some of you're probably not old enough to remember, but in 1980, when was it? 1990, after the NC was disbanded and the violence had escalated, KwaZulu government wanted to legalize the carrying of traditional weapons. And the Legal Resources Centre, the attorney was Chris Nicholson, who became a judge. Their advocate was Advocate Chaskelson, and the judge was a very famous Liberal judge called Judge Didcot. It was quite a case. I was the expert witness, showing that these were weapons of war, not weapons of peace. So I gave evidence in that, and I've given other evidence. For example, in a case we did on land issues that we thought we might get to Concord with, but the government opposed us and we didn't bother. And that was about land ownership and cultural identity. And I've given evidence in more than one case. I've given a few evidence as a social worker in occasional cases. I don't do that anymore. But I've given evidence in mitigation of witchcraft sentences, because I'm an anthropologist and we're as one sociologist said, the experts in the irrational. So I have given evidence. I mean, that's what I can remember off the top of my head, yes, in courts.
Thank you. Dr. Das, then just on paragraph 18, I just want to isolate some of the paragraphs that appear in your article. At the bottom of page 18, you says, "My work, among other things, confirms the close links between political and taxi violence in the province, with taxi hitmen often deployed in political attacks. It is a cause for great concern that despite the availability of information about such activities, little progress has been made in bringing perpetrators to justice." And then on page 19, the next paragraph, you refer to what has also been mentioned before the Honourable Committee in May 2018. President Cyril Ramaphosa formed a national interministerial investigative team drawn from different parts of the country to investigate the killings. And you say its work has stirred controversy. Amid allegations, it has been selective when making arrests. Questions have been raised about the quality of its investigations, which have had little impact on exposing those behind the violence. And so you've become quite a critic of the PKTT, as it is called, and we're going to deal with that in a bit more detail. On page 20, you also accuse their work of not being transparent. You say the interministerial task team investigating the political killing started work on over 100 dockets in mid-2018. Over a year later, the only known high-profile conviction for any of the 90 murders I documented was secured by the KwaZulu-Natal detectives in March 2019 for a 2016 murder. there may have been other convictions for the murders of less known victims in regional courts which have not been reported, but none have been reported for the many prominent victims during this period. Can you assist us in ascertaining, determining what is described as a political killing? Is there any criteria that one can use?
Well, I define my criteria. I call them politically linked because it's the position occupied by the person, and the motive I don't know, because I call them politically linked. I use the defining criteria, which I've refined over the years. It was quite easy back in the 80s and 90s. You could see the conflict was between, or sometimes within, in Richmond, it was within the party. But it's become a lot more difficult to actually say what a political killing is. It does often, though. So as a result, I define my criteria, which is, well, you have to occupy a position like a councillor or a senior member of a party, as in the branch executive. And I've included senior municipal people because often they're caught up in a web of corruption in municipalities. But I do go out of my way to say, actually, until the case comes to court and the evidence is led in court and assessed, you can then start saying, well, is the motive political, or is he having an affair with someone's wife, or has he got a taxi business or a security business? I mean, that's not political per se, but so, and I know this because over 20 years ago, I served on a small committee which was established by then Minister Twete, because the white farmers, does this sound familiar, were saying they were getting targeted for political racist reasons. And we had all the cooperation we needed from ministers, police. We talked to prosecutors, investigators, everything, victims, families, even prisoners in prison. We did everything we could, and there was a high solving rate, and we couldn't find a motive. Now, that's how difficult it is to say, well, how do you know this is a motive? You need a court case to start with. So I say politically linked. And my problem with the task team is that I have never known how they define the cases. I have heard they've taken dockets that have got nothing, as far as I know, to do with politics. I have no idea what the base they're working from. So it's impossible to say X percentage of it. You have to start with the universe. You know, who are you describing? Where are the dockets? Even now, I'm battling to work it out because I don't know which dockets they took and which didn't. And the figures have tended to shift somewhat over the years.
Thank you. Now, can I refer you to your affidavit, your statement, paragraph 11. I want to just refer to your engagement, as it were, with former Minister Kele, and also the communication you had with then Provincial Commissioner Mkhwanazi.
Yeah. Okay. I had complained to the Portfolio Committee, everything should be on record with them, about Bailey's involvement in operational matters, which I knew he was involved in. Everybody knew he was involved in. I mean, if you talk to people who've had experience, I mean, when I tried to find out, when some relatives of a man who'd been arrested told me that their relatives were all getting abused by this task team to try and get them to make statements. These were people who contacted me. I met with them. They told me about it. And I said, okay, well, who is heading the task team? They didn't know. They gave me a name that I phoned, and it was a policeman who said, well, he was with the task team and he wasn't anymore. And I said, well, who's running it? And he said, oh, Bailey's running it. Oh, okay, well, that I'm not surprised about because, you know, I know I've heard that otherwise. The other thing I know he's running it is that in the Magaka case, Sindisa Magaka. I know this from crime intelligence itself, but it was leaked to the media, not by me, that crime intelligence had supplied the money for the guns that attacked 3 people, ANC people in Mzimkhulu, and 1 died. It was Sindisa Magaka. Okay, now that report was somehow leaked to the media. And it transpired, and I checked this out, it transpired that the head of intelligence at the time had given the report to Cele, which is not his operational role. The head of intelligence is supposed to give it to the National Commissioner, and he didn't do that. And the National Commissioner said public in the media he didn't know anything about it. I mean, I've never asked him about it, but I can believe it, because if you also, I don't know if it's included in this, but it's even on the internet, or it was. It's a protected disclosure by former Deputy Minister Vuma, General Vuma, Deputy National Commissioner, and she talks about how Cele was constantly interfering and trying to get this procured and that procured. She was investigating. She says in her protected disclosure, she said she was investigating corruption, and then Masemola was told to get rid of her, and she was suspended. I think she's not back. So, I mean, it was, and I complained to Parliament about it. I said he shouldn't be running this team himself. And the former late Honourable Chairperson said, no, of course he shouldn't be running itself. But she said, we talked to him about it, but of course nothing was done. Because if I talk to people who've experienced the task team, they say that he was seen with Khumalo. So I just wanted to investigate it. Okay, now, then what happened is in 2021, I have known Thabiso Zulu since he was at high school. He did some research for me at one stage. And he, of course, got into big trouble. I said to him, he went to the Morani Commission to tell them what happened to Sindisa Magaka. I said to him, don't stick your neck out. And he did. No, he said, I've got to do it. And then the problems started. He got security threat assessments from the police. Even the public protector said he was to have protection, and he didn't get it. Barely took it on review. He refused. Thabiso was almost killed, just narrowly missed being killed in 2019, and then the police started harassing him and maliciously charging him, and he's been in hiding most of the time. Right, in 2021, he called me because the political task team had come to him and said, we're investigating this case you opened, which wasn't even a political case, it was an assault case. And then they'd use that as a pretext to seize his 2 cell phones. They didn't produce a court order. Then they maliciously charged him again. When he got the cell phones back after my intervention, including speaking personally to Khumalo and writing a letter to Mkhwanazi about it and copying it to Parliament, nothing ever happened.
That's MDH 5.1 on page 23. That's the letter to Mkhwanazi, 11 October 2021.
It sounds like it.
And MDH 5.2, which is on page 27, addressed to the Honourable Chair and members of the Parliamentary Police Committee.
Yes. I also, at one stage, I thought I'd did an affidavit because somebody was going to investigate it. None of the cases Thabiso Zulu opened, and there's evidence, especially in the attempted murder, none have ever got to court. And there's a political case if you try to shoot a political whistleblower. Yeah.
So, and General Mkhwanazi himself, did you ever respond to you?
Not in this matter that I recollect. The only time, I've written a lot of letters to him about what's happening. I think I got one response from him, but because I sent him, I think I'd have to check back, quite frankly, but I have sent him a lot of letters, including about what happened in July 21, when he wasn't around. He was nowhere to be found, not even on the phone, while the place was looted and burning. Okay, now, I have written a lot to him, and the only letter I can, off the top of my head, reply, I remember sending him pictures of some armed security guards with rifles in one of the towns. And I said, you better I think I sent him the pictures and said, you know, are these people allowed to carry guns like this? And I never heard another word, but I think he indicated that he would investigate it, but it was years ago now. But I also put on record with Parliament in 2020, a couple of years back, before the last Parliament changed, that Clearly was going around telling people that I heard from police that they were not supposed to talk to me. So maybe Mkhwanazi had orders from Clearly not to talk to me.
Now, Dr. Das, can we just move on to some of the reasons why you demanded the disbandment of the PKTT, and you deal with that from paragraph 15 onwards on page 10 of your statement.
Yes. May I just go back, though, because directly informing that is under 13.1. The abuses that people independently were reporting to me, which was part of my motivation at that stage.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought they were catalogued in those.
Oh, okay. Well, I can include that.
But maybe highlight them. Maybe highlight 13.1, 13.2, 13.3, and 13.4.
Yeah, okay. There was the emotional and physical abuse, the use of tubing. I mean, a lot of police do it, but it's almost a norm from what everybody who encountered the task team spoke of. But also emotional, psychological abuse, which they tended to use more with the policemen they targeted than the physical abuse, because maybe they were a bit more empowered. But the emotional abuse was extreme. I've listened to it. I've heard about having to get psychiatric help. It's very clearly spelled out in information given to me by a man called Ronald Pillay, who refused to give false evidence against Mzintli. Mzintli is in one of the first 3 case studies I sent. Mzintli was a former MK member, actually, who was for years a senior road traffic inspector in the Lower South Coast. He reported corruption, and he reported the alleged real killers of the speaker, Wandile Mkhize. And he was then targeted, and eventually he was charged with fairly minor charges of, when I say fairly minor compared with murder, charges of defeating the ends of justice. So he had a gun that was his deceased brother's, he didn't even know was in a suitcase. He was kept for 5.5 years without bail on those charges. They tried to poison him in prison, so he was obviously very unpopular. And then he was released in May this year on the section of the Criminal Procedure Act, which withdraws the charges for lack of evidence. 5.5 years without bail. That was an extreme case. Now, Ronald Pillay was a colleague in the road traffic department, and they'd come to him and said, we want you to do this, sign a statement implicating him. And he said, I won't do it. And he gave me an affidavit about how even this prosecutor that I complained about had tried to force him to do it. He made an affidavit, and he said they kept harassing him. They would come and search his house without a warrant. His house was even set on fire once. He doesn't know it was them. And then they caused him to lose his job by supplying